Welcome. My name is Naomi Olson, and I'm actually coming to you from the state of Florida. And I'm very excited to be talking to you this afternoon regarding junior, early teen, and tweens. A lot of the times we combine them together as tweens because they're the age groups of the 5th grade to the 8th grade, or they're ages 10 to 14. So those are the ones that we'll be talking about this afternoon. And let's start with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to talk about your children that are so precious to us and that we want to see in heaven. We want them to be where we are and where you are. We want them to have a close walk with you, and we want to be one of those vessels that you use to create a space where they can learn about you and they can then create their own life and process of their own of connecting with you and praying with you and learning about you. Thank you, Lord, again for this great opportunity. So we're going to start out by talking about juniors again. And in the junior curriculum right now, it is showing that they are the ages of 10 to 14 that you can use that curriculum for, and grades 5 to 8. In the past, it has been in smaller churches where this works in smaller churches where there are not a lot of space for separate classes for the different age groups. So the juniors program has put that actually into one. And then if it's a larger church and you do have space to take out and put the 13 and 14-year-olds in another, or 12 to 14-year-olds in another place, then you actually can use the real-time faith, which we'll also be talking about. So for this part, we're going to be talking about the juniors PowerPoint and different things, hopefully that will be of help to you. Can anyone answer this question? And if you can, type it in the chat box. This is just a way that you can use Zoom and online to, okay, this isn't the story of Joseph, but it's the title for a king of Egypt. In other words, it was Joseph's boss, Pharaoh. There you go. So in the lesson this week, which is the third quarter of year A and lesson 7 of the PowerPoint program, it is talking about Joseph. And one of the ways that I like to start out classes is with something that gets the kids not thinking about possibly what is going to be happening in the lesson, but actually to get them to think outside and start to open up their mind. So the main emphasis on this for this lesson was on Joseph and how he went into the pit, then he went into prison, and then he was into the palace, and how obstacles get in our way, and how different things happen in our lives that slow us down. So with this, obstacles are in our way now. I feel like this is like the perfect lesson for our kids to be having right now, because obstacles are in our way now. They may have had something really bad happen, or they have felt like they're in prison because they don't get to leave the house. And then to go to church, even if it's just to sit in the sanctuary, is like going to the palace, and it's like fabulous. So for these things, this lesson is actually one of those that with your kids, you could do a lot with it. There are, in the ssnet.org, you can download all of these, and you can have your kids download their lessons from there if they're not getting it from church anymore. So there are places for them to get that. So in this lesson, it is recommending that you do some activities. Now, with doing it by Zoom or different things like that, it may not be that you can do the activities as they're written, and you just have to tweak them just a little bit. So one of the options that it has is to stand up have the students form groups, 2 by 2, and stand up and do an activity together. Well, if you have a family that they have more than one child that's in the junior class, then yeah, you can do that and have them do it at their house. But if they don't, how do you customize this to something else? Well, they're on Zoom. Ask them to pair together. Ask them to talk to each other and work out a problem with them, because they can do it in a private chat. They can do it rather than having everyone picked on the chat. They can do it with it just to each other, and they can come to a resolution, or they can answer a question together, and then they can post it to everyone. So there's different ways that you can get your kids involved by doing things off-site or virtually rather than on-site. You just have to, as a leader, one of the big things is, as a leader, you have to start thinking of this differently. It is not the way that we've always done it, where, you know, if I just know the lesson and I know what I'm going to do, I can just walk into church and I'll have the stuff that I need. Nope. Now you actually really, like for me, I have to really prepare. I have to think about it, not just the week before, but I have to think about it so that I'm using things all the time. So when you're looking at how to do the activities that are presented in the PowerPoints or in the real-time faith, when we get to that, then you're going to want to specifically think outside the box and see how you can do it the same but different, with a different element. So one of the important things with these kids that are in this age group that I have found is that they are feeling like they're not wanted sometimes, because we just push them to class, or we push them here, or we push them there. And a lot of the kids are feeling that way in churches that they've been going to on-site, that they just, you know, they're just required to show up. This is the age group, 10 to 14, that choose whether or not they're going to stay in a relationship with Jesus. Even if they are in your church every week and you see them and you talk to them all the time, they are still making that decision, and they can make the decision to not share a life with him at this point because of something that happens there. So talking about Joseph again, Joseph here, he chose to stay with God. And whatever he did in the pit, he didn't know what was going on. Then he gets dragged out of that pit, and he gets thrown into these people that are going to Egypt, not knowing who they are. I've never seen them before. I've heard about them. And now he's on his way to Egypt. Then he gets to Egypt, and things start looking up again. Things start taking off, and he's doing really well. And then again, he gets thrown into a pit or prison. And oh my, now I'm here again. I haven't done anything wrong. I don't know why I keep getting into these situations. And we can use this kind of opportunity with our kids to actually say to them, sometimes we're put in situations where we don't know what's going on, to look for new things, to look for positives, to look for what we can be blessed for. I mean, Joseph could be blessed that he wasn't killed, because he probably did hear his brothers saying that they wanted to kill him. And he could be blessed that instead of being killed, he was just sent to prison. So there's the blessings that you can pull out of this message for the kids. But again, you are the ones that are looking at your kids and what they need, and then structuring the lesson that you get or that you're working with to address what they may be needing. That's why this one I thought was, you know, this, for the time that we're in, this I could go a long time on just doing this lesson. Introducing the Bible story and getting the kids to experience the Bible story are two big components of the junior lesson. So when you're introducing the Bible story, do the questions. They have questions here. Have you ever experienced a teacher or adult showing favoritism to someone? And how did it feel? That's one of the questions in the lesson. So when you are looking at these lessons, actually think of answering it for yourself. Have you personally felt favoritism from anybody, or seen favoritism being given to someone that you felt didn't deserve favoritism? Experience the story yourself. Put yourself in the first person rather than just reading the story. Sometimes when we put ourselves in the first person, we get a whole lot more out of what's happening in this story. We all of a sudden see that Joseph, all he had going for him was God. And he kept repeating that to everybody who asked him a question. Well, my Lord can take care of that. My Lord can answer these questions. He never actually took the praise or the power himself to answer the questions. He always put it on the Lord that he could answer the questions. So experiencing the story when it comes from you personally is very impactful for the kids. If they know, if I tell one of my kids that I'm having a rough day and I'm not doing well, they are going to treat me differently. They are going to treat me with more compassion. They're going to treat me with a different set of questions. And just because I was honest with them about where I was that day. So experience a story as a first person, especially when you are doing it through Zoom, so that they know that they're not alone and feeling like, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't have answers. I have a lot of questions. Then they feel more in a safe place to be able to ask you more questions and asking you how that you can help them. So in the juniors, they have a part that's exploring the Bible. And then this exploring the Bible part of this, I actually read through it, and then I was like, I'm not exactly sure I think this little application is right. Because it goes through and it asks you to do a math problem. The math problem is, how old was Joseph when his brothers sold him into slavery? Then how much time did Joseph spend in prison? And then how old was Joseph when Pharaoh made him second in command? How many years of plenty were there? How many years of famine had passed when Joseph's brothers came to Egypt? And they're asking you to answer the question of how many years was it from when Joseph left home to when he saw his brothers again? And so for me, in starting the process, I started it like a math problem, and so will your kids. They'll start it like a math problem. But if they go to the text when they're answering question 2, how much time did Joseph spend in prison in Genesis 40, 1 to 41, and your little key here says at least 2 years, and they're reading a solid 2 years in the text, you need to be prepared. You need to know that the text said first that when he went to prison, it was sometime later that the baker and the wine tester came to prison, and then it was 2 years after the wine tester left that he actually was removed from prison and sent to Pharaoh's house. So there's these kind of things that I'm encouraging you to study on your own, to make sure that when you're presenting things to the kids, it's not just you're reading something that was done in a lesson, but you're actually exploring the Bible with them. You're finding new information. You're finding new data. For me, this has been very interesting because my devotionals right now are on the life of Joseph. And so I've been able to listen to my devotionals over and over and hear a little bit more about the life of Joseph, besides just studying this lesson. So the other thing with this lesson is serving anyway, serving no matter what. One of the things, we're trapped at home, or we feel trapped at home, but we do get to go out to the grocery store, and we do get to go out to maybe Walmart to pick things up. Yes, we have to wear the mask. Yes, we have to be prepared, but it's not that we are trapped in one place. So, serving anyways, how do we do that? How do we get our kids to do that? How can they still serve even though they don't come to church? They don't do an activity that's at church. How can they still serve? Well, a smile can be a service to whoever sees it. With the mask, we may not see it, but a helping hand, being respectful of the people around us, teaching the kids beyond the service of what they're used to. Sometimes it's hard to figure out, when can I serve? How can I serve? But God always provides a place and a time. God always shows these things. And for our kids right now, we want to make sure that they are seeing that they can still serve, even if it's in the home. In the home, it may be that now we're cooking more meals at home. Now there's more chores at home and different things like that. Can we make them fun? Absolutely, we can make them fun. Can we make them a game? Absolutely, we can make them a game. But we have to be constantly reminding ourselves so that we are reminding them that service, in spite of obstacles, whatever the obstacle is going to be a great thing. And we're going to be blessed, and we're going to be thankful, and we're going to praise and worship God for it. So that is the junior, in a nutshell, PowerPoint lesson that was for today. I would have expanded on it quite a bit in a Zoom classroom, but that was what I gleaned real quickly, giving to you what I gleaned out of it from the lesson, from this lesson this week, that I can give to our kids. We're going to be talking about a lot more things besides the lesson, so don't worry. So the next one is early teens and junior youth. Ages, it should say 12, but it's ages 12 to 14, because sometimes 12-year-olds are in the 7th grade, and sometimes 13-year-olds are in the 8th grade. So this is generally grades 7 to 8. That's the grade group that the curriculum is written for. These are our early teen and junior youth are the ones that actually are looking for ways to serve and be helpful. Sometimes you think that they're not. Sometimes, they're on their phones and they're on their devices so much. But actually, have you asked them to help? Or have you told them to help? Have you engaged in the conversation with them? Or have you expected them to do something the way that you asked them to do it? I don't do things the way that my mother asked me to do it. And my mother never did things the way that I thought she should do it. And this is what is still going on in our kids. Nothing really has changed in the perception of I know more, you know less attitudes. So how do we actually move forward with this? Again, I have a little, I'm not even going to try to tell you what this is. I just want you to read it and see if you can type the answer in the chat box as to what it is saying. Because it's really not saying what's on the screen. Anybody? No clue. Okay. So if you say it in your mind, because it works better in your mind than trying to say it out loud sometime. But if you say it phonetically, you may come up with what it is saying. But I'm going to help you out. This is what it's saying. Fill the earth and subdue it. Can you now see it? That's crazy, isn't it? This is from the game Mad Gab. This is one of my favorite games to get and play with kids. It is a bunch of different sayings that are phonetically correct. This is phonetically correct, but it actually reads this way. And I get them. They have an easy side and they have a hard side. And I get this game and I use this game. I use a lot of games with my kids. I use them a lot. Because I grew up that if you were bored, you had to go get a game and you were playing a game the rest of the day. So in the Earliteen Sabbath school, which is real-time faith, for this 7th lesson, they are studying the way the world began, discovering our roots. Now, this could be anything. I'm going to be giving you the resources at the end. Don't worry. This could be anything in your interpretation, but what it is in the lesson is creation. And in this lesson, the real-time faith, the source is, for you are created my inmost being, from Psalms 139. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, Genesis 1:1. And so this lesson for the early teens is going back to where they're from, that they are from God, that they are way back, their life really started back when God decided to create man in their own image, in his own image. So when you're looking at this kind of biblical account and working with kids through this kind of thing, it's a lot of conversation. Your conversation with them and asking them, questions and going through what do they understand as their roots, in their Christian roots, in their cultural roots, and different aspects of those different things. So when you're talking about this lesson and discovering our roots, it's still kind of like with the Joseph lesson, discovering how his life changed throughout all of his history. It wasn't just one and it was always the same. No, but it was changing. Everything was changing. I heard a podcast regarding Adam, and that when Adam died, the Bible says that Adam just died. That was it. He just died. He didn't get sick. He didn't get old. He didn't, wasn't having trouble or anything like that. He just died. Doesn't say anywhere around it that he was old. It just said, well, Adam died. He was 940 years old and he died. His life was one of those that we all want because he was the first he was the first created of God. Therefore, when you're talking to them about discovering your roots, you can bring in how the Bible actually tells them the roots were, who was in that original spot. And then you can do the beginning activities that are provided in the real-time faith. And looking at these beginning activities, these would be very difficult, but not impossible to do in Zoom. The first activity is that you are to have them gather coins, 10 pennies actually, and put the 10 pennies into a bag, okay? So then on each of those 10 pennies that's in the bag, it has a number on it. And they're supposed to reach in that bag and pull out the pennies in order. Not fiddle around with them until they get them in order, but pull them out in order. So how can you do this with your early teens? How can you ask them to do this kind of activity when you're doing it by Zoom? Well, they may have coins at home that they can actually go and get, and instead of you having them pull them out with a number and they go ahead and put the number on it, you can ask them to pull them out in date order because every coin has a date on it. So all they have to do is go pick up 10 pennies, put them in a bag, and then they have to go into that bag and pull out the 10 pennies in date order. 1945, 1962, however the date order is, and see if they can do that. So you can do this activity with them at home. But again, you are having to prepare ahead and think, how can I get them to do this at home? Because if you're doing it on Zoom, you actually can see them on that wall of what they're doing, and they can be all doing it at the same time, which is different from them doing it in the classroom where one person, you have one bag and one person's trying, then the next person's trying. No, they can all be trying to do it at the same time and finding out how hard it is to actually organize something without God. So the other beginning activity in dividing the students into groups and directing them to tell facts about themselves. Again, you have the chat bar down below that you can use to have them tell facts about themselves. What I would do with this kind of activity is I actually would have them take a moment and write on a piece of paper what they think they'll be doing in 5 years, what they think they'll be doing in 1 year, what they think they'll be doing in 10 years. And then I would put those in a box and I would read them back to them in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years. So this activity, again, you can have them send them to you, that you can have them email them to you. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this activity virtually. The same way you do it on site gets the same impact. But they need to remember that you are kind of paying attention to them too. So connecting to the kingdom and connecting to the lesson illustration. In this one, connecting to the kingdom, God created us to be citizens in his kingdom. God didn't create us just, to be out there. He created us to be with him. So when you're talking about these kind of things, you want them to discover that God is serious about wanting them in his life. Okay? And therefore, he wants you to want him in your life. And so you can go further with this. You can tell more about what's going on with how God felt about creating man in his image and how you feel about being a person in God's image. Because when you look in the mirror in the morning, do you just take a quick glance, I don't have anything flying around and walk away? Or do you take time like me to do your makeup, do your hair, and then you go and walk away? So it's how your image, God wants to be part of that image. He wants to be within you. So there is a way that you can do that with them. Then they have a connecting this to their life. Suppose one day a friend tells you that he no longer believes in the story of creation. Have you ever had this happen? It's the craziest conversation after this. You no longer believe in the story of creation? For me, it's like, okay, so what's your basis? I need to know your basis. Come on. How did you come to this conclusion that the creation story is wrong? So I have a lot of questions. Well, with your kids, connecting it to life, do they believe in creation? Do they believe in this book that is we call the Bible, and the illustrations and the guidelines and the stories and the problems and the overcomings that are in it? This is that kind of question. So you have to, at this point, you are getting ready to delve into something that you can create a new way of thinking. It serves perfectly for experimentation and figuring out where the kids actually get their information from. Because if we are all Google-oriented, that may not be a good place. But if we're all Bible-oriented, that's a much better place. Because how many times has the Bible been changed? None. It has stayed steady it's had translations, but it stayed steady in its message ever since it was written. So those things, basically, those are the most fascinating things for me. So taking this kind of question and asking them to chat back and forth with you to give their answers on it, to find out those kind of things, that is important for you to understand where they are and how they're thinking about their life. And it then goes right into an application history, which you can send to them ahead of time, which the handout for this one is the Layers of History worksheet. It's a worksheet that you can get by downloading online. We'll be going through that here in a second. And you can you can go through and that history with them. So those kind of things in the Earliteen lesson are things that, different ways that you could look at doing this lesson. So one of the most important things, so that's about the lessons. Okay, we're going to move on to something else now. One of the most important things that I did with my juniors, the early teens, and youth when I was, anyways, I didn't do them all at the same time, but I've done each of those, was prayer. One of the big things that I found was that they needed to know that somebody was praying for them. And so I had a class prayer journal, a journal that every week I wrote in their prayer requests. And they had been told many, many times that when in my personal prayer time at home, I would always be praying over the journal. The additional thing that I added with the prayer journal was that if they had a secret prayer request, that they could write it in the prayer journal themselves. That actually no one else got to read the prayer journal except me. And that gave, in my youth class and in my early teen class, that gave them great comfort that they could write a secret prayer request, something that was going on in their life that they didn't want anybody to know about, but they knew they needed prayer on. So that opened up a whole lot of conversations. In my youth group, they knew that if they got in trouble at any point, that they could call me at any time. I would answer the phone and I would be there to pick them up. And then we would go and I would take them home and we would talk with their parents together. But they all knew that I was there for them. So the prayer journal is one of my things that I have done for years. I did it when I had my church choir. I did a church choir prayer journal, and which I found recently, which was very interesting. So prayer journals, class prayer journals, and when you go back and read through them later on and what your kids were going through or what they were praying for, I tell you, the answers to prayers are voluminous when you then have that experience. Prayer activities. Another thing is prayer activities. A lot of different prayer activities. A lot of different prayer activities you can find out online, and you can try those prayer activities too. And that is sentence prayers, word swap prayers, different things like that, word prayers, different things like that that you can do. Prayer balls. This is a beach ball. May not be able to tell that it's a beach ball, but really it's just a beach ball. I didn't blow it up. And I use this in multiple programs, adults, children, for them to write their prayer requests on the beach ball. And then they pass it to the next person. And then they pass it to the next person. Group Publishing actually has a prayer beach ball. This is it, where you can pass it, and you do it like hot potato, and you pass it, and when you stop, the thumb of the person, the right thumb or the left thumb or the index finger, but a finger that the person has, you ask them to read the prayer. And like right now, tell about a fun day you had. Thank God for that day. So it actually helps them with their prayer and what they can pray about that they may not think about. What did I do for a fun day? And that I can thank God for that fun day, Okay, so those are the prayer balls. And another one is prayer Jenga. So I don't know about you, but I have kids that do not want to, participate in class or do anything in class. And so you can play the game of Jenga, but first you have to do a little prep. And that is putting a number on each block. So for all these blocks, they are numbered from 1 to whatever it is. This is number 27. And the kids then pull one out, and you have a list of what they're supposed to do. And on that list, it can be number 27 is responsible for praying today. Ha! Okay, you just got somebody to do opening prayer. And then you can choose another one, have another kid choose another one, and they are responsible for closing prayer or reading the scripture or something else. Now, I bet you're thinking, well, how can I do this if I'm doing it virtually? Guess what's at the dollar store for $1? A mini one. Now, this means that you have to have a mini one too. But Everybody could have their own Jenga little game. You could give them to them as birthday presents or a gift or something, and ask them to put numbers to number each one, or you already number each one, and then they can do this game at home. So yeah, you may have the problem of somebody getting the same number as somebody else. That just means you're going to have 2 opening prayers, right? So those are 2 ways. That's one way that I use the Jenga, is for getting kids to have prayer. But the other way is to help them answer questions. So if you have an entire class that is just, they don't want to talk. They're required to be there because mom and dad brought them, but they just don't want to talk. You have 27 questions and they play Jenga. So they have to answer whatever question they pull. So you have a list, a little more effort on your part to make a list of all these questions. But you have your list, they pull their block. And yes, you will have to have questions for all of these, or you can have repeat questions for all of these. But it gets them involved, it gets them doing something. And again, you can get the mini guy, and then you can have him. So 2 important things: prayer and keeping communication going with your kids with regard to what's going on in their lives. Because in their life, you don't know what's going on unless you tell them, unless they tell you. You can ask their parents, and their parents will tell you what they think is going on in their life. But until you ask the child, you will not know what's going on in their life. So please communicate with your early teen or junior rather than just the parents. Now, memory verses or verses that you want kids to learn or something like that, there's different techniques that I have used. One that I use for primary is puzzles. So I go and I buy these puzzles. They're like 50 cents. And I then write the verse on the lid. And then I take the puzzle pieces out and I write the verse on the back of the puzzle pieces. And then I throw it on the floor and I give it to them. Now, again, doing this virtually, you can send them the verse that they cut it out. They still can use scissors. I know that we sometimes don't ask them to do crafts, but they can still use scissors. And if they have a little brother and sister, they could ask the little brother or sister to do the scissors, but they still can cut something out. And they can still then put the puzzle pieces together while you're doing your class. It takes forethought, it takes planning so that you can get the things that they need. One of the things with your Sabbath school class also is that they may have certain things at their house. So when you're getting started and you know you're getting ready to start with prayer, you know that, you know what your agenda is for the rest of your time with them, have them gather a list of things from in their house. So if they need their Bible, make sure they have their Bible. If they're going to be using their phone or a tablet or something like that instead of an actual physical Bible, then make sure that they have that available and it's ready to go, because you're going to be asking them. A thing that you can do with the Bible with them is just like I did with the 2 Mad Gab, I went through all the Mad Gabs trying to find the Genesis and a verse that came from Genesis chapter 1. So I found that. So that's the same thing with the Bible. You can do speed where you tell them the verse and they have to find it as quick as they can and then start reading it. You got them in the Bible, you have them looking for verses, they have to start reading that verse, even if it's on their phone. Though I will be honest with you, I have found that I am slower trying to find a verse on my phone than actually in the actual Bible. I don't know why that is. It should be faster. I keep telling myself it should be faster, but I'm much faster in my own Bible than I am on my phone. So those kind of things you can use and you can do either in a classroom or you can do them virtually. But it keeps them engaged. And the main thing that I want to emphasize is that you want them to be engaged. You want to figure out some tricks. This is a trick to get them engaged. having their own little one of these is another trick of having them engaged. And another one that is fun to use is called story cubes. These are just little cubes. They look like die, but they actually have pictures on them. And some of you may have seen them, but again, you can, because if you're doing it in the classroom or virtually, because you can move your screen so that you can see what it says and have them come up with a story, you really only need one story cube. If you have the story cube, then you roll them and then you show them what it is, and then you ask them to tell the story. So this, even though this is something that you probably would never have thought of that you could use in a Sabbath school class, you could do it. Like what I have here is a fish, stars, a castle, and a flashlight and a key. And I need them to tell me a story with Joseph involved that involves a fish, a castle, a flashlight, stars, and a key. Can you come up with one? I mean, when you're looking at it, your brain basically goes blank. But when you start thinking about Joseph was in prison and needed a key to get out, there was a famine and they were going to not have any food. The fish could just represent food. Joseph's story was the stars in the heavens that bowed down to the one. He lived in a castle when he was with Pharaoh, and he depended on the light of God. So having your kids actually do that with a story that they're familiar with, or you do it, that is another way. But again, you can do this on Zoom, and you can do this virtually. And it could be the person that has number 27 gets to tell that story. Okay, and it could be more elaborate than what I just gave you. Okay, so Bibles. One of the things that I encourage I spelled it wrong, oh my. One of the things I encourage everybody is to know about Bibles. There are several Bibles out there. And the one at the top, the Essential Teen Bible, if you're looking for, places that are Bibles for your kids and that, this is the Essential Teen Bible. And this is what it looks like. This is a coloring. They can color the cover of the Bible of their own. But within this Bible, and just give me a second. Need to put on some glasses so I can read it because it's tiny print. Within this Bible, it has also things that are true friendship so that they can learn about friendship, what looks like true friendship. They can ask questions, or questions can be answered during the different threads of the Bible verses. So this one is one of those that I just love kids to have because they can consider questions. This one's on broken. And they can then use it as a Bible that they can learn and study. And it has more than just the text. It has places where they can write things. The other one, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, hopefully you are, is the Pathfinder edition of the Bible, which is a New King James Version that actually has our church history, little snippets of it, and different things like that within it. So this is another one if you have Pathfinders or Adventurers. They have the Illustrated Study Bible. This one is a New King James. This is for girls. But this is another one that I've come across that is different, but it has the maps if they are interested in geography. And it has more color pages than it does just the black and white pages of different informational kinds of things within the Bible. So that one's a little bit different. Then there's the Illustrator's Note-Taking Bible, which is also, if you're a lady that's been looking for a Bible, It's also like the Beautiful Word Bible, which is one that I use. And the note-taking Bible provides them to write next to the verses, be able to write notes. Now, one of the things that has been like a no-no when I was growing up was that you're not allowed to, in the Bible, write, highlight, that kind of thing. Well, that has changed with these types of highlighters. And these are Bible highlighters. These are wax highlighters, which are perfect for the Bible because it doesn't bleed through. It stays on the one page. So this one, I'm going to hold this up here for a minute. It's called a Bible highlighter. I hope you can see it. And it is available at christianbook.com, which I'll be getting to that resource in a moment. And you can get it if you go there and you buy a Bible. Okay, but these are fantastic. The other thing with your kids is a big conversation that you want them to understand what they believe, what the Adventist Church believes, and different things like that. You may or may not have seen this, but there is a What We Believe for Teens, and this is the 28 fundamental beliefs written for teens. Now, if you're an adult, it may take you 2 hours to read it. That's about how long it took me to read it, because it's easy reading, but it's 8th grade level. But for them to get a snapshot of what we believe in a concise and creative manner, Steph Pierce has really done a great job to keep them interested in what we believe. So this is another one I would highly recommend. Okay, so somebody want to know about resources. So for the PowerPoint and the Real-Time Faith, you can go to their actual websites and print all those materials. Or you can go to sabbathschoolpersonalministries.org and print it from there. Or you can go to ssnet.org and pick them up from there. Or the mobile apps, okay? Excellent. Clear Word Bible. Thank you for that comment. Or the mobile apps. There's a couple of mobile apps. There is the Sabbath School mobile app where they can see their student lesson. At sabbathschoolpersonalministries.org is the teachers and the student lesson, the whole book. But a book is, you can't print the whole book as one. It's broken up into pieces. So your activity sheets, your memory verse sheets, and different things like that are at different place, are in a different place, I guess is the only way to put it. So those are both available there. And then the Adventist Mission, there's a link in both Junior PowerPoints and Real-Time Faith. There's a link there to get to the Adventist Mission so that you can still do the Adventist Mission, which this is something that you can send them a text, you know, that we're looking at the Adventist Mission, or we're recommending that they read what's going on in Adventist Mission right now. But you can, you know, orchestrate that or figure that out how you would like to do that yourself. But keep them involved in mission. A lot of times they get, you know, I'm the only one going through this kind of attitude. It's like when my father died, I was like, I'm the only one going through a death in the family. And then I went to grief counseling, and guess what? I was not the only one. You know, there is a lot more people that are going through the same exact feelings that I was having. So those kind of things, and keeping them involved in those kind of things. So christianbook.com. I don't know if any of you have ever been to christianbook.com, but that is where I get my Bibles. They have about 2 to 3 times a year sale on just all kinds of different Bibles, and I go in and I check them out and I review them. The prayer wall group.com. This was from group.com. Also, sometimes these kind of things are on Amazon. The story cubes, I actually got them from a science guy, but they are all similar things to it are on Amazon. The Mad Gab, which is the one that was the Genesis 1:28 verse, Amazon.com. The other one, the first one, is Blurt. This is another wonderful game that you can play with your kids online because you put the question in and, whoops, that is not a question. And the first one to respond, to blurt out the answer, and then, so you have the question on one side and you have the answer and the Bible reference to it on the other side. I cannot emphasize enough that you must have the Bible reference for anything that you do in these classrooms with these kids. If you do not have a Bible reference for them, then you've lost the battle. You've absolutely lost it, because the Bible reference is critical for them to stay in tune with, this is from God, not from what you were, your opinion, what you came up with. So Bible references are very important. The lessons that are available are the realtimefaith.net. So if you go to realtimefaith.net, that's the lessons that are for the early teens, 13 to 15. And they look like, the teachers looks like, okay, that's not what they look like. The teachers looks like this. But also I would suggest that you explore Sabbath School and ssnet.org, because that's where all of them are. So your beginners, your kindergarten, your primary, your juniors, your early teens, your youth connections, your collegiate, and your adults are all at the first two. And then Junior PowerPoints is just for the juniors, which is this one, and Real Time Faith for the early teens. So another thing, since our families, talk about families real quick for a little bit, since our families are kind of trapped at home and wondering, you know, what can I do fun with the Bible with my kids? When I was growing up, my mom, well, my family was big gamers. We loved doing games, and we loved playing games. So we had a lot of games at our house. So there are card games that are similar to Uno that you can get on Amazon that are the commandments, where they're learning the commandments in a fun game that you could give as a present to some of your families. There's also Discipleship Plus, which is another fun game for everyone to learn about the disciples that were with Jesus that you could give to your families. There's these different kinds of things that when I come across them, I always pick them up. I always want to have it in my box of ideas, in my box of things and resources that I can use. I love being able to say to families, okay, what do you need? And they say back to me, oh, well, we're just looking for something to do. We're looking for something other than just, you know, us reading the stories over and over. And I'm like, oh, there's a game, there's this game, look for games. And in your Big Lots, there is a section where they have books and different things. And sometimes you can find games there that are biblical based. And you can play, and that are little card games that they can take home with them. And they can play those kind of games. Encourage them to do things that are fun. Scavengers hunts, Guide Magazine. Oh, thank you, Letty. I forgot about Guide Magazine. For them to get the Guide Magazine. There's also a link to Guide Magazine in powerpoints.org and Real Time Faith. So thank you, Letty. So getting families involved in doing things together that are fun rather than just sitting around. You use Kahoot. Love it. Sitting around and not doing anything at all. So I'm going to open it up to any questions. I have about 5 minutes of my time left. There is a lot of things that is happening in our world that is impacting our children. On a serious note, I received an article yesterday that 1 in 4 of our kids, and it's in this age group to 25 years old, is thinking about suicide. They are thinking about things that they don't have and can't be with their friends and different things like that. So please bear that in mind with your kids. And don't worry about if your teens don't want to show their face. Ask them to participate verbally, that if they don't want to show their face, you still expect them to participate verbally so that you know that they're there. To type you a question, to answer questions on the chat line, get them to participate in where they're comfortable. Because this is a group that self-esteem is really, really low. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not, so-and-so. This is where the Kardashians have impacted them so much that they do not want to participate in things. You can offer incentives, but if you offer an incentive, then they're not going to actually still be participating. But the person that just put up dress up in disguise, have them dress up in disguise. Have them dress up as their favorite character, favorite Bible character, or something that's fun. Have the whole group dress up in disguise. So this is, great ideas and this is what you need in your community and in your church. Start talking to the kids. Okay, ask your kids. So, so-and-so, Naomi, she doesn't want to show her face when she's on Zoom. And I was wondering, do you have any ideas as to how we can get her to participate? And then you'll get from Glinda that they could dress up in disguise. So your ideas can come from your kids as to making it more fun, making it more interactive, and getting them more involved. And include music, even though they may not sing, but they may listen or watch a video. Include music, because the music is a calming effect on them. Even though for you it may not be a calming effect, for them it is a calming effect because it's part of their world. It's part of what they're in all the time. They're encouraged to see you being interested in them. Always show some way, somehow, that you are interested in them. And don't forget that sending a card by snail mail, the U.S. Post Office mail, is just as valid today as it has ever been. Everybody, it does not matter their age, loves to get a card, because that means, getting a card means that you took extra time, extra effort to send me this card, because you had to search and find the card that you want, that was appropriate for what you wanted to send. You had to take time to read, to write a note to them, and just send it to them. Okay? So, did we play today for junior? I don't understand the question. Did I play? We talked about the junior lesson first. So I'm sorry if you missed that. Okay? So, is there any other questions or ideas? Any ideas? You couldn't share your screen. Okay, so was it technical difficulty, or, because generally anybody can share their screen with them on Zoom. Zoom is like the easiest program to share the screen on. So you may want to check with someone. Okay. All right. Well, you may have to, instead of sharing your screen, you may have to do what I was doing. You may have to show it to them, or you may have to email it ahead of time. So remember that every kid has an email address. that you can email them the things that are happening in the class, like the puzzle pieces that they'll be putting together for them to cut out. You can email ahead of time. You can keep in contact with them with text. Telegram, WhatsApp, you can use those to create a group chat that you can text with them what's going to be happening in Sabbath school, what's going to be coming up that the coming weekend. If there's a service project that they could be involved with, like going and handing out food, if they're interested in being part of a service project. My church has a program that collects food so that people can come and pick up what they need, and they could be a part of that. So looking at these kind of opportunities, create a group chat that's just for your early teen and or junior class, that you can talk to them about specific things that are happening and specific things that are upcoming. And that's all my time today. So I'm going to have a quick prayer with you, and then I'm going to sign off. Dear Heavenly Father, this has been a wonderful time to meet new friends. Even though all I get to do is see how well they type, I still know that they're there. They love their kids, Lord. This is the best thing ever. This is the biggest blessing I can have today, to know that they love their kids and they want their kids to know you and get close to you. So, Lord, please be with them as they travel this journey with you, and give them wisdom, give them ideas, and give them the appropriate people to talk to when needed. Thank you, Lord, for your blessings this day. In thy name, amen. Have a great day.